We're making sure that we're not obligated to the inmate, that we're not dependent on the inmate. But that's why we're put in this position. We have to be better than them. Because if we don't respect ourselves, we can't expect the public to. How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk. Great question came my way. Very balanced question. Sometimes when you have a YouTube channel, you start hitting into the thousands. It's not always going to be people that are workers in the profession. Sometimes we actually get people from the outside looking in. And one of the questions that I got today actually comes from a college student. And they're asking, how do we balance the safety of staff and inmates after an assault on staff? And we've touched on this before in one of the older videos, but I think it's a good topic worthy of another discussion. So again, the question is, how do we balance safety after staff assault? How do we protect the staff? How do we protect the inmate? And again, I have a very professional audience, so they know both measures have to come in play. You know, we're not looking at old school prisons, old school jails. There has to be an effort to protect the inmate as well, of course, as protecting staff. And I think it's great when you get a college student asking that, because it's a balanced question. We don't usually get balanced questions. We usually get something that puts us to blame, and it's very biased. So I'm going to make an attempt to try to answer this. Again, something we touched on before. I'm going to try to touch on it again. So as always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. Please listen to our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to touch on a balance after a staff assault. How do we try to protect both parties? And guys, don't forget the show Tier Talk's for you. Brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. I stand by for our sponsors.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Thank you guys for listening to our sponsors. This is a very balanced question, a very needed question. So I'm asking you guys to remove yourself out of the frontline perspective and see the bigger picture. See where the liability is. So we're talking about a way to protect both staff and the inmate. Very balanced question. I enjoy this type of question. I'm sure my audience does, so feel free, comment, interact, engage, give us your perspective. But just, this is my opinion. My opinion does have some experience. I've dealt with this. But automatically when a staff assault happens, well, first of all, let's imagine this. You're walking on a tier or in a dorm, and an inmate decides to throw a human cocktail at you. Blood, urine, semen, feces, throw up, whatever the case may be. Or they decide to come at you full force. That is very hard not to want to retaliate. You know, you're going to have that compulsion automatically to have a little jailhouse justice, but we're better than that. That's the conflict of the job, because we have to remain professional even in hell. Plain and simple, right? We have to be professional even in hell. Management knows that it's possible that there's going to be a level of jailhouse justice, and they don't want that. We, on the front line, we don't want that either, and I'll get to why we don't want that. And again, being objective, looking past front line. One thing is, before we get into the fact of why we don't want that, I want to mention that this is going to touch on the fact of why we need laws that show zero tolerance for any form of staff assault. Because that alleviates the pressure or the compulsion for staff to want to take it into their own hands. Because they know that there's going to be a punishment. And they know the inmates know there'll be a punishment for attacking staff. So hopefully it deters the inmate from doing it again, or other inmates from wanting to kind of be like a frog and take that leap. So, again, outside of that, just wanted to touch on that. The reason why we scramble a lot, the reason why we look to protect both sides, is because of the liability. People, when the public finds out there was a staff assault, people look to minimize the inmate's initial action and look to see how we reacted. That's the key, and that's the sad thing. If we reacted poorly, we will be held responsible for that poor reaction, which means that we went above the level of force needed to restrain that individual. And we do not want that. We want this inmate to get hit 100% with the full blunt of charges that is coming their way, with the support from those laws that we need, those zero tolerance laws, again, because we're looking to not take measures into our own hands. That's where that support has to come in. There's no ifs and buts about that. So the effort to move the inmates immediate, you want to attack staff, you got to get the inmate out. Now, if it's a county jail, you may see if you have a deal with another county. If it's a state prison, you got other state prisons that the inmate could be sent to. And that's the initial action from management. Camera moves, all that stuff, and hopefully that eliminates the compulsion from staff to want to retaliate. And again, that's so we can hit that person with 100% of the full blunt of what you did. So you're not going to minimize the inmate's actions based on our reaction. That also, again, as I mentioned, protects staff, right? Because the inmate's out of sight. The compulsion shouldn't be there because the inmate was taken out immediately. Lawyers start to come in and say, hey, this is what happened, and we protected your client. As soon as it happened, management got that inmate shipped out. So now you're on the defense. You're solely on the defense. Not my people. Not management. We did what we could do to protect that inmate from retaliation. So now it's 100% on you. You'll be defending that inmate's position. But my staff don't need to defend anything. It's your inmate or it's your client that attacked my staff. So I think what's needed at the end of the day are going to be laws that promote that zero tolerance. And again, that's to alleviate the pressure from staff feeling that they need to make an example of this inmate, that jailhouse justice. Again, not saying it's right. I'm not. But what I am saying is you don't want them to take those measures in their own hands, because again, they're looking to make sure it doesn't happen again. If an attack like that happens to staff and there's no answer to that attack, it's not going to stop other people from doing it. It's not going to stop that inmate from doing it again. So that zero tolerance is a very good answer that can help prevent or deter. And then again, you remove the inmate out immediately. You don't inconvenience staff. There's no reason why you should have to move staff. Don't inconvenience them. Because sometimes inmates hope that. They put up a little pawn and the inmate does the attack, but they're hoping you move staff because maybe staff was onto something. So you may need that consistency in that unit. So don't inconvenience staff, especially if they were doing their job. Do not inconvenience them. They need to get right back on that bike, right back into that unit. But at the end of the day, I think that's the way you balance it. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of comments here, but I'm asking us to be objective, see things from a higher level, because it's that liability aspect and the need to make sure that our reaction doesn't minimize the responsibility of that inmate's action. That's the key. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Please comment, interact, engage. Love your thoughts on this. What do you think is the best way to balance this, to make sure we hold the inmate responsible, those zero tolerances? And just love your thoughts. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Please stay safe.